So welcome, thanks for being with us.
So promoting and disseminating science engineering to the society is the broad issue that brings us here. But first, let me just say who I am and where do I come from. I'm a journalist. I'm a science journalist, and I've been in Portuguese TV network since 1988. And until 1996, I was doing politics, science, political journalism. And then in 96, I decided to move to science journalism. And so I had these are several of the weekly magazines I hosted dealing with science and technology. Where do I come from? I come from Portugal. Do you know where is Portugal? Some of you do, some don't. You have here Europe. Is there a pointer? No. Yes. Not okay. Portugal is here in red. This is Europe, as you know. We also have these islands. I think this is not anyway. These islands are in the middle of the Atlantic, and these are more near Africa. Why am I putting this here? We are a republic since 1910, and our first president of the republic was born here, one of these islands. 10 million population, more or less. Some more women than men, but it's more balanced. And why am I putting this here, Madeira? First of all, because it belongs to Portugal. But do you know this guy? Okay, I believe you, some of you at least. This guy is one of the most famous Portuguese guys nowadays, a footballer. He has been the best in the world for several times. So, but back to the map of Europe. Here we are. I come from Oporto. My hometown is here on the north. I live now in Lisbon. And Oporto is this city here, okay? The name of our country is Portugal. It comes from Portucale. This town here is Gaia, which derives from Cale. So Portugal is Portucale. These are different cities. This is we are near the sea. This is the River Douro. These buildings you see here. These buildings here, they are wine cellars. Okay, inside it's like this. Here we have port wine. Port wine is one of the most well-known products of Portugal as well, it's called port wine from Porto. Although it is not produced there, okay? The barrels come in these boats, used to come in these boats from upstream the river, Rio Douro. And because they are, port wine is produced really here. These are the vineyards in the north, okay? This is Porto, the central square of Porto. With 240 inhabitants, more or less. If you consider all the metropolitan area, you reach 1.8 million. As I told you, I live in Lisbon. Coming from Porto to Lisbon, we go through Coimbra. It's also important, this town, because it's where the oldest university in Portugal is situated, formed in the 14th century. And then, yes, Lisbon, the capital, with 500,000 inhabitants. If you consider the area, this area, you reach 2.5 million inhabitants. And a few words also about Lisbon. This is Tower of Belém. From this place, Vasco da Gama started when the trip when he came to Portugal 500 years ago. These to India. These are other views from Lisbon. The castle. Okay, and now this is a new region. It's not only old buildings. Okay, we have also some new buildings, about Portugal and about myself, it's okay. Now, oh no, yeah, we have parties. 1 month ago, yes, in June, the 13th June is the holiday of Lisbon, and each neighborhood has its own group, and they march on the streets, and they have a contest and so on, and so this very, very colorful, as you can see. At dinner we take sardines. This is a kind of fish that we appreciate in Portugal. I do, and it's roasted and with potatoes and tomato and lettuce, sometimes with pepper as well. Okay, now you will be able to have these slides, and then you have here some links if you want to visit. I don't know if this will work here. Perhaps you recognize someone in here.
I'm very proud of this.
This is our Prime Minister. His father was born in Goa, okay? And I think you know this gentleman here. It's when our... let me see. Okay, it's just he talking. Okay. I think it's okay. Thank you, Mr. Costa. It's okay now. Okay.
This is not just one more visit for a foreign country.
Why do you need to? This is the outline of what we are going to do this afternoon. This is a kind of a triangle between society, technology, and science. So you can read it. Science research and informs the people, the society, and creates technology from the research. And then technology sometimes demands more from science because, as you know, some things you research things and you for instance, Einstein, when he first talked about laser, it was only theoretical. Only 50 years later was someone able to build, to construct a laser. And nowadays, you see, laser is everywhere. So sometimes research theoretical goes more in front, and the technology needs to develop more science. And then technology supposedly makes life easier for society, and the society benefits from technology, and also demands more from science. So this triangle, technology is the use or the application of scientific knowledge for a specific goal or purpose. I think it's understandable. Public and promoting and disseminating science and engineering to society is a kind of a bridge, so between the lab and society, okay? And it has been, as this author says, it has been developed. It's still developing. Science communication. What do you mean by science communication? It's nowadays a field of many disciplines. Science outreach, science popularization, science public relations, and scientific marketing. So all this is in science communication. And I would add science education as well, because people must be educated to understand science and understand technology. Otherwise, you can have, for instance, you have something like we had here. I couldn't stop because I was not able, because I must be educated, more educated, get more information to do this. But also science education at school, of course. And that's why in some countries, people at 6 on the basic grades, they are starting to learn code programming, you see. So it's because we must have the knowledge, we must have the tools to deal with our technological society. Perhaps you already heard this French thinker, Descartes. he said, cogito ergo sum. It means I think, therefore I am. I usually use this to say that I am, therefore I communicate. We all communicate. Since we are babies, when a baby starts to cry, he's communicating. He's telling that he wants to have some milk or some food. Okay, so it's really since the old times. When you go back to Thales of Miletus or Plato or Aristotle or even Euclid, the thinkers of the ancient Greece, all of them, they wanted to communicate their knowledge. Okay, why? Because they want to spread the knowledge, and they want, of course, to be recognized for what they know. Okay, so it's not something new that science communication was already an issue in there. And this author, Martianus Capella, for instance, he wrote this on the marriage of philology and Mercury. And the story is about his servants. One was called music, the other was called philosophy, the other was called... So the 5 arts. And he wrote a book about this, to tell that all the arts, the knowledge, should be shared in a family, in a house, and in society. Later, Galileo Galilei. Sometimes this is considered to be the first book, the first science communication book, Siderius Nuncius, where he wrote about his discoveries and his observations of the moon and so on. And he wrote it in Latin, because by then Latin was the language of the knowledge of the people, the powerful people. For some reason, the church had the power it had by then, and by now sometimes, but by then, because only the literate could read. And they were linked mostly to church, because we didn't have press, so they must be copied, the books, and a few books were produced. And anyway, he understood that he should spread the knowledge more and more to society, and so that's why he started. He also published this book in the natural language from North Italy, where he lived. And this brings us to a discussion now going on in India, for instance. Should you use English or Hindi or Gujarati? Because if you want to talk with the people from Ahmedabad, most of the people here speak Gujarati. They don't speak. A few speak English, some will speak Hindi, I believe, but for the lay people, for the common people, you must also communicate in their own language. And Galileo Galilei, he understood that, and that's why he published books in not Italian. There was not Italian in there, but their language from his region. Later, in the 19th century, the Royal Society of England was created, and the tasks were these: communicating among scientists, and also communicating with the public. Okay, so we are in the 19th century, and this was already an issue. Okay, so why should we should we promote and disseminate science and engineering to society? This has been now on the 20th century and now on the 21st century. We call all this public understanding of science. It has several phases, and we'll talk about it. But the paradigms of public understanding of science used to be all based on the deficit model. And what is the deficit model? In the 60s, we talked about science literacy. And the researchers, the academics, used to tell that public is ignorant. There is a public deficit of knowledge. So we must teach them. We must. They should learn, and the media should have more shows on the TV and more texts on the newspapers to explain society, to educate the people. Okay. Then after 85, we started to talk about public understanding, and there was still this public deficit, but it was a deficit of attitude. The people didn't trust, even when they understood the message, they didn't trust the scientists, and so it was necessary to change that attitude of the public. They should do marketing. That's when we started to have science museums, but interactive science museums, where we generally, some museums even nowadays, you see, don't touch. But then the new wave of museums is touch, experiment, essay. It's for you to. So this was to create a stronger link and for the people to understand that this was something for them to use. You remember that triangle I had there. And then later we started to talk about science and society. And here we introduce a new version of the deficit. And it is the deficit of the researchers. The researchers don't understand what the people want and don't know how to communicate. So there is a deficit not only from the public, so it was also from from our side of the researchers. And now more and more, I believe in India, I've been reading some information about India in this subject, and in Europe is the same, in the United States. Many actions that are people, the researchers and the teachers go to the schools and go to they organize science cafes, for instance, is something very common now. They go to the society, they meet the people where the people is. Okay. I had some references here, and in the last slide you'll be able to find it. And now it's public understanding of science somehow became science understanding of publics. Okay, and in the 80s there was the Royal Society I mentioned earlier. In 85. They published this report, The Public Understanding of Science. It's a very interesting report because they make an assessment of how it was in England by then. And the last conclusion, or the last remark is this one. Our most direct and urgent message must be to the scientists themselves. Learn to communicate with the public, be willing to do so, and consider it your duty to do so. So, researchers are called to join and to do something, to be active in this promotion of the public science literacy. Okay. Sometimes you hear on the radio, on the TV, or scientists have discovered that. Sometimes they didn't, but I use this sentence just to increase my credibility. Okay, and if I ask, so show me, oh, I don't have it right here, but later I will, and I will never send it. Okay, so. But this means that you must be involved on communication. Why? Because scientists have discovered that. People will believe anything if you say that scientists have discovered that. You see? Okay. So, why should we do this science communication? To raise scientific culture, as I mentioned, because people must know how to use the results of the research that you reach. To get self-promotion, this is not a sin. It's as we saw in the older thinkers. it's natural that I want to be recognized for what I know, what I do, if I do it well, of course. And also promotion for the institution. So sometimes some researchers, and I have found several, that say, no, it's me, it's not the institution, I don't care about the institution. And I always say, okay, but the institution pays your salary, and you research with public financing, perhaps. And when you, if you tell that you belong or you research in that institution, perhaps someone out there, a company or so, that needs to solve some problem, they are aware that in that institution there are experts in this field, so I can go there and pay for. So this is a win-win situation. So you should always tell where your affiliation, as you tell, okay? To boost your career, of course, because if you tell, if the people knows that you are expert on that field, perhaps you will be asked to make a partnership, for instance, and you will boost your career as well in that. To raise money, funding, both funding and revenue. Nowadays, many funding institutions already demand that you do 3, 4, 5 paragraphs describing what you do in simple words, communication for lay public, okay? And it's mandatory, so you should try to get this new pitch of this course, you see. And also, of course, to recruit students, because if the society knows that in that institution we do this kind of job, and we've seen some weeks ago or so, when these new students came, the foundation program, I talked with some of the new students, and I was asking, so why did you choose IITGN? And a few of them, some of them, I didn't choose, it was not my first choice, okay? And others also said that my parents chose. So if we tell the society that here in my institution we do this and this and this, and we get these awards and all of that, perhaps it will help to recruit new students as first choice, okay? I'm talking about targets, of course. The society, the parents, the students, and targets is very important. We will see later, we will address this issue of targets. And this raises one question, because promoting scientific careers, does it? Well, there are researchers that discover, yes, Stekolchik, he says that the great influence on decision, in addition to its function of informing and forming citizens, exerts a significant influence in fostering scientific education. Okay, so I have my own experience with those magazines that I hosted on TV, and I know, because they told me, that some students, some nowadays researchers, chose their scientific career because of what they saw, what I was showing in the magazine, okay? So if they are informed, they will be curious, perhaps. If they don't know, they will not. I mentioned this. I believe you know ResearchGate is one of the platforms where you can upload your articles. And there is a question, does the responsibility of researchers end with the scientific publication of their findings? This was raised for the first time in 2013, and they keep answering now and then, because I also found many people, some researchers that, no, I publish my work and then I go back to research. I don't need to explain it for other people. Okay, that's more and more a common idea, that you must also, it doesn't end your job with the publication of of your articles, of your findings. Okay, so if you want to go to see more of this, as I told you, we now have a field of research that is the science of science communication. People who research about science communication, and this was the deficit model first, then the dialogue model, where people more and more the public is engaged with our activity. Sometimes the public wants to have a word on what should you research. Okay, this is not very well. Some people don't like it very much, but anyway, this is really not an evolution. I mean, dialogue model doesn't come to replace the deficit model. This is like layers of science communication. So I would say that they coexist. Okay, because there are still many deficits, but there are also dialogue situations, and fortunately. Perhaps I will not try this. You will have this because it's too much. It's just you have the dominant model, deficit, dialogue, and participation. The last layer is the public, and we shape the issue. We set the agenda, and we negotiate meanings. So this is a more recent trend, but of course people still do research and still behave in that first level. Okay, but it's not necessary to discuss more this, because you will so much complicating that. Okay, from why we go to how to do. We live in a visual culture, a visual society. Nowadays, everybody is watching and is publishing things in Instagram, and for some reason, Facebook some years ago decided to have video. Twitter already has video, and video is increasing its importance, its presence. And so, if we live in a visual culture, we should use this to communicate, to disseminate science. And this is an example. I'm afraid if I go again. Anyway, you have the reference here. Engineering.com. It's a platform where many engineering-related stories are published, and they are videos. Not only videos, but many of them are videos. This is one I would like to show, but I'm somehow afraid. Shall I risk?
Magnets can be created by running currents through wires, by finding a suitable material that naturally has all the magnetic fields of its atoms aligned, or by forcing the magnetic fields of atoms to align. But there's one more kind of magnetism that all materials exhibit, even those whose constituent atoms aren't magnetic, though it's so weak that the other kinds of magnetism often overwhelm it. Basically, an external magnetic field causes the electrons around atoms in a material to change course, and their new motion generates an opposing magnetic field. This field is pretty weak, but it does cause the material to be repulsed from the magnet a little bit. For example, if you hang a wooden toothpick in a magnetic field, the ends will repel the field and it'll end up aligning across the field. This is a convenient way to remember the name of this kind of magnetism, diamagnetism, since dia means across, like the diameter measured across a circle. Diamagnetic materials will repel a magnet, and a diamagnetic compass will point across the magnetic field. That is, it'll orient east-west. As weak as it is, diamagnetism is pretty darn awesome because it's a repulsive effect. Any diamagnetic material will levitate in a strong enough magnetic field, like this chunk of graphene, or since water is diamagnetic, this frog. In principle, humans can also be levitated this way, though the magnetic fields required would be enormous. There are also a lot of subtleties we've skated over, like the fact that nitrogen is diamagnetic even though as an atom it has unpaired electrons. One might think that it should at the very least be paramagnetic. But nitrogen atoms bond to form N2 molecules which have full outer electron shells and are thus only diamagnetic. On the other hand, molecular O2, as we've seen, still has unpaired electrons, and it's paramagnetic. You've probably also seen how superconductors can levitate in the magnetic field, which is a kind of perfect diamagnetism. Not only do the currents in the superconductor create opposing magnetic fields, they expel magnetic fields from the material entirely. But the root cause is very, very different, and that's a journey for another day.
So you see, how in a simple, I think this is embedded here, a simple way of explaining, and most of you are from engineers, so I think you will understand more or less what is this. And I've heard there is a new train, I think between Pune and Mumbai, right? It's something like this, I believe. No? Yeah. Okay. You see, a simple way, it's not like this. Okay, but the question is, it is easy to explain for lay public with those drawings. This is visual culture, okay? So visual culture, we need visual tools, but is only visual tools that we are going to use? Of course not. Yes, but not exclusively and not enough. As I told earlier, each new thing doesn't replace completely the old thing. We in the media and the journalism field, some guys used to say that when the radio appeared, it will kill newspapers. Of course, it didn't. And when TV. And then, okay, you explain it very well, but now suppose you are talking to an audience from a bank. They are from finance or from a bank. And it must be a different kind of speech. And, okay, what is one of the the biggest problems you have on banks, on finance? It's the identities still, okay, if you and the fraud, okay. There are the hackers that go inside your systems and take the data. So what do? You have firewalls and antivirus systems and so on. So in our body, sometimes there are something from outside, microorganisms that come to affect us, and we have inside of us a system that prevents and that attacks when we are attacked. They close the entrance of those. So it was a way of explaining that. But then we did it harder. So now we are all 6 years old. So you must explain what you are doing to us. And he thought for 1 minute. Okay, do you like to play hide and jack, às escondidas? Yeah, hide and jack. Okay, if now you are the robbers and I'm the police. What do? You close the doors and you call the police, and the police goes and protects you. So in our body we also have some policemen inside, and we call them when we are attacked. Okay, and everybody understood. So the different kinds of message, of discourse, of speech, must be adapted to the target. Okay, here it's not enough to talk to the youngsters, as we were talking, because their parents and the general public also influences the choices that they do. So to reach our targets, we must know what are their concerns, what their interests, their priorities. Okay. So we must study the public and be okay. What is the public that I want to target, or that will be hearing me? So the target, okay. And now the techniques. We must know the techniques. And we have the traditional techniques related to teaching, the conference talks, the opinion articles, and so on. And now we have the new techniques for the social media, the video, of course, the interaction ways of connecting with people and of communicating. And so these are the tasks and the challenges that we communicators and you researchers as communicators do face nowadays. We must improve skills in these areas. Written communication, okay, these are the traditional somehow. Anyway, if you are writing for a new media, for social media, it's not the same type of writing when you are writing an opinion article or a scientific article, okay? Graphic communication, visual culture again. Verbal communication, because we must talk to the people. We must go out there and meet the people. As here at IITGN, you have several programs linking to the society and people from out there coming here. You must know how to deal with them, how to talk with them, because they may come from different levels of knowledge and of education. The non-verbal communication, this is very important. If I started this talk sitting here and just looking at the computer, for instance, well, you will be sleeping by now, of course. But we must talk to the people. We must look at the people and try to understand the reactions. If I see somebody like this, I must do something to wake up. And the use of ICT, of course, information and communication technologies, how to use a PowerPoint, how to use that kind of graphics that we've seen the guy was doing, that kind of tools that are available nowadays, and it's easy to get them. Some of them are increasingly free, and so if we don't know how to use them, we will not use. So the rules to succeed: know the syllables, know the targets, and know the techniques. And the final remarks: we have learned, the story goes, that one-way top-down communication of packaged scientific information does not work. Science communication nowadays makes it easier for the public to talk back, okay? And scientists need to listen so they understand, and understanding can be developed together. So we must dialogue. And this is the final remark. And this, I repeat this because know your target and engage with it is what you need. This is the references I mentioned. They are here, and that's it. I didn't say at the beginning. You could have interrupted me, but now you can ask any question that you want.